Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I want to welcome you back to another edition of your Adrenal Fix. It's been a while, but I'm really excited to get talking to you guys again, consistently. Today we're going to be talking about getting out of overwhelm. Who here in the room is out of overwhelm? I mean, who is in overwhelm? Exhausted, fatigued, can't focus, can't concentrate, have fear of going places, for a lot of reasons. You're going to be too far from home. Is your gastrointestinal system or is your stomach going to make you have to sit on a public toilet? Are you going to be too anxious? You're going to crash when you get there. You're going to be exhausted. All of these things, right? Who of us in the room have that? I can see by the show of likes that you guys have that. And so that's what this is about. But it gets more into that. It gets into being panicked and anxious. Gets into being able to focus and concentrate. It gets into moods like depression and sadness, or bipolar. You're good one moment and you're down the next moment. What about just being sheer out exhausted and not handling stressors the same way you used to? You find out about a stressor, just a basic stressor, and it stresses you out. That's what I'm calling overwhelm. So just by another show of hands, or likes, let me see all those that have that, because then I know that I understand my audience, which I think I do. So what we're going to be talking about today is the role the adrenals play with that, the adrenal fatigue issue with that, and how the basics are not happening. And so there's a delay, because when I see your likes, it's about 30 seconds after I do my thing. It's like, they're not doing likes. And then all of a sudden, 30 seconds later, when I'm not saying anything for you to like, you're giving me likes. So anyways, 5 boring facts. We're going to be talking about boring stuff. This is the boring stuff. This is the stuff like, not the sexy stuff. Like, give me the good supplements. Give me the good testing. Let me look at my genetics. What's this whiz-bam thing here or that thing there? What's the next shiny object that I haven't done yet? We're not talking about that today. We're talking about the boring, the basic stuff. Sympathetic versus parasympathetic. It's a big one. That's an epidemic, and whatever the pandemic, it's bigger than an epidemic. It's a global epidemic in terms of just overwhelmed, sympathetic, parasympathetic. We're in a permanent fight or flight survival mode based on our technology nowadays. Also, the impact that plays on the neurotransmitters, the impact that plays on adrenaline and dopamine and GABA, your excitatory neurotransmitters and your inhibitory neurotransmitters, your gut health, blood sugar, and brain health. The basics, stuff that's kind of boring, but if you get this stuff down, it can really help you. So where do the adrenals fit in? Why am I talking about the adrenals? Because I'm the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja. Many of you may know my story. A lot of you probably don't. I had a really bad case of adrenal fatigue, pretty much started when I was 15 years old. And just terrible diet as a child, lots of sugars, not very fresh stuff in package, stuff microwaved, going out for fast foods. But I was playing a lot of sports and suffering from anxiety at a young age, and then going through chiropractic college, and then going through graduating from that, and then getting into over $200,000 of debt, and just being overwhelmed with stress. And here I am, wife pregnant with twins, and now you got to earn an income and put it together. And I injured my back at the time. Just graduated, moved to a new country, let alone a new state from where I had been going to school, and didn't really know anyone. And my wife was pregnant with twins. Anyways, whole other story. It caused me to have adrenal fatigue. And when I had a patient who was an acupuncturist, came in to see me, and I told him about what I was dealing with, he brought in a book called Why Do I Have Thyroid Symptoms Even Though My Blood Tests Are Normal? And I kind of laughed, I joked, I was like, I don't have thyroid problems. So I put it on a table, and a couple of months later, probably even a year later maybe, I exhausted, burnt out, opened it up, and the adrenal gland definition was a picture of me in there. And I was like, adrenal glands, and then it was an epiphany, and here we are. So now what I've learned is what you're learning. This is what I've learned. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper. It's definitely the adrenals. The adrenals sound the alarm. If you're in sympathetic overdrive, that is the neurological connection to the brain that tells the adrenals to produce adrenaline. There's also a biochemical connection through cortisol that comes in sort of after the fact. So the adrenals are involved. And if we're going to call the adrenals adrenal fatigue, throw away the term. And let's just say, hey, the adrenals are involved. And there's a neuroendocrine connection. And there's an immuno connection. And there's a gastrointestinal. Hey, guess what? The system works as a system. It's not an individual system. So just for you as the doctor thinking, shame on me for thinking that it's just about the adrenals. Shame on you for not thinking about it's the whole body, right? I mean, seriously, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? So anyways, a couple thumbs up for that one. That's a pretty good one, right? I'm just going off the cusp here. So as far as sympathetic and parasympathetic goes, why would we be in sympathetic mode? Why would we be in sympathetic mode? It's our society. We have cell phones. Cell phones are going off like crazy. I mean, let's admit that in some small shape, way or form, we have a cell phone addiction. To a small extent, some kind of cell phone addiction. Not that you know of, but when you get a text, when you get a message, when you get a social media, perhaps, notification, when your boss sends you an email, when you check your bank account, when you check other emails, and you mean it's just overwhelm. How many times do you go multitasking? When you go to the grocery store and okay, I got to get a list of groceries. I'm listening to something. I'm talking to someone. You're doing about five. You got 5 windows open in your life, but this is real life. Is that not true? If it isn't true, then God bless you. Hopefully you're not on this, listening to this. But there's a lot of media going on at the same time. And that causes an adrenaline response. That causes a neurochemical response. That requires neurotransmitters and good healthy functioning proteins and good absorption and good gut health and good B12 conversion and absorption and reduction of inflammation and clearing out of liver toxins and balancing your glucose. Where do the adrenals fit in that? They fit in because they notified us and told us this is what's going on. They're the sounding alarm. And you know what? Depending on how bad it is, if you fix the sounding alarm or you support the sounding alarm, then you don't go down this rabbit hole and to the point where you can't get out of bed. And if it's like if you start to see an engine light on your car and it goes off, don't be surprised if you would have got it fixed 3 months ago, 7 months later, the transmission goes or something else goes. It goes deeper, right? I mean, it's just common sense. The longer a problem exists, the deeper it goes and the more intricate it involves. And so hopefully that makes sense for you guys. But we're in sympathetic overdrive. Our brain doesn't shut off. And if that's not enough, then there's the stressors of relationships. Then there is the terrible quality of the food. And we'll get there in a second. There is other relationships, exercising, injuries, traumas, all of these other things, all of these other inducers of cortisol. All of these things are inducers of cortisol. So there's all of these things that go on. And, I just went on vacation. I was very blessed to go to Costa Rica. And I remember having an interaction, and I was already on sort of, island time, so to speak. And it was a state of mind for me in terms of, okay, I got the cab's waiting for me and you're taking long and I gotta go. And I said, hey, can you mind if you hurry up a little bit? And he said, oh, you're waiting for the cab, don't worry. And I was like thinking, yeah, it's a different culture. It's a different time constraint. And that was in my head. So one of the solutions we're gonna be talking about for getting out of sympathetic and parasympathetic is not numbing the brain. It's not, going on medications and fixing something that it is inherently broken. It's fixing things that aren't happening. that need to be happening, that are not being addressed, that are the boring stuff, that doesn't require medications. But it does require a change of mind, because your brain forms itself in the patterns that the mind and the thoughts are giving it signals for. It makes sense. So if I'm constantly in stress and overwhelm, I'm constantly secreting neurotransmitters. I'm secreting adrenaline. I'm secreting excitatory stuff. What happens if there's a genetic predisposition to not break that down or make it in the first place? Or what happens if the gut isn't allowing you to do that? You can do all these things, but it's up here that you got to fix. Does that make sense? It's up here. It's got to be fixed up here. This is where the awareness takes place. This is where a lot of the neurotransmitters take place. But that's why I have gut health. You guys know that 90% of serotonin production takes place in the gut. So if you have lousy gut health and you have a biome that's disrupted, and you have overgrowths of microbiota, you have biofilms, you have decreased gastric secretions, you're not absorbing your proteins, your carbohydrates, you're not breaking down and absorbing your healthy fats, you have overgrowth of other types of bacteria, not just candida and yeast, potentially I know it's kind of like the sky is falling, and I don't want to sound like it's doomsday, but those are the things you need to consider. And consider, I see a lot of the people that have this perfect storm of things going on, these are the things that they have. And you have to balance all those things. You have to be aware of it. You have to be aware that it comes from the brain first. It comes from the brain first. We call it the gut-brain reaction, or the gut-brain connection. And there's a lot to do with the gut. Blood sugars, as far as blood sugars go, oh my goodness, I'm going keto, I'm going paleo. Blood sugars are a misunderstood thing. And it's not because you guys don't try or you don't realize, it's because there's so many ins and outs. There's also, so the ins and outs are genetic predispositions for reducing inflammation and binding neurotransmitters and hormones to your cells. There's a certain genetic component to that. There's also cortisol levels. All of the things I just finished talking about will raise your glucose levels, will raise your cortisol levels. Gut health and inflammation will raise the cortisol levels. Raising the cortisol levels raises the glucose levels. Raising the glucose levels raises your insulin levels. Raising your insulin levels raises your inflammatory responses and decreases your ability to get nutrients and into the cell, let alone as toxins and harmful byproducts of energy out of the cell. And it's no wonder we're under siege. And then it comes down to brain health. So let's talk about some of the solutions. Some of the solutions is, number one, the brain tap. And you've heard me talk about this, and I don't recommend anything that I don't use myself. And if I do recommend it, I have to give full disclosure. I've seen it result with positive results for you. I wouldn't recommend something that I don't think would help you, but I don't have direct experience. And there's not too many things that I don't have direct experience. So the brain tap is just a phenomenal thing. I was actually going to start the Facebook Live like this, but then I would have thought that you would have thought that you were tuning into a Star Trek generation thing and wondering where's Dr. Rosen. So anyways, the brain tap, what it does is it slows that sympathetic parasympathetic loop that you have going. That's what's going. It's stuck and you're not getting out of it. That's basically what I can describe it does. It tries to slow down your brain waves. It's going too fast. And there's different types of brain waves for different type of healing. And if you can get that brain wave at night so you can get a deep restful sleep, not only are you getting a deep restful sleep, you're repairing, you're regenerating, you're recuperating. How many of in the room, I know you, almost everyone in the room will talk about the fact that up to some point they can't sleep. Can't fall asleep, can't stay asleep, can't wake up feeling rested and regenerated. Just sleep sucks. I don't have that problem. I mean, sleep for me has always been a blessing. But I know why it's a blessing, because I part of it is because of this this brain tap But the other part of it is I realized early to turn the brain off. At the end of the day, turn the brain off and let it heal. And that's what it does. When it goes into a deep, deep delta sleep, it can cause a beautiful lymphatic cleansing and cleaning and repairing and regenerating and healing and slowing this down. Next thing you know, your neurotransmitters are working better. Next thing you know, gut health is doing better. All the things that you're doing already, the exciting stuff, start to work. Think about that. All the exciting stuff start to work. And I'm not saying you have to get a brain tap, but you have to look at it that there's a brain component. There's a brain component. The brain is the component. It is. And until that brain gets, until you get that awareness, number one, and then come up with a game plan to do that, to fix that, or to at least weave it into what you're doing, then that's really, really key. Really, really key. And it's not easy because you can't just think positive thoughts. There has to be a certain sequence, a certain methodology, and you're not just going to sit on the top of a rainbow and whistle lollipops and have gumdrops fall out and think great thoughts, and you're going to fix this and use the brain tap. It's just not going to work that way. So anyways, I hope that was really helpful for you. I'm trying to give this quick and to the point. I know I can go on for a lot longer, but the longer I go, the less people watch this. So I want more people to watch this. If there's any questions, I'll see if I can answer a couple questions. We have Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. I hope you're doing well. And Jan, you as well. And Kathy, happy belated birthday. Hope you had a good one. Mary and Karen, I hope you're doing well. And it's been 5.5 years. I want my life back. It's, you know what, Mary, with a lot of people, it's been more than 5.5 years. I know you didn't say it as 5.5. And so the gratitude in that is I'm grateful that it hasn't been 12 years. I mean, you know, that's one thing. And not to compare yourself to other people, but if you're going to compare yourself to someone who's less fortunate, that's a gratitude in a good or bad way, but in a good way. Hi, Brenda and Lizzie. I hope you're doing well. Mary, you got it. Barely sleeping. Okay, so if there's any questions, I'll answer it. Is it important to go to bed at a certain time? I really think it is. It's a great question, Mary. I have the Aura ring, and my wife hates it. We're going to be getting a new one. She says I look like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. So I'm going to be getting rid of this one. But it does tell me about my REM sleep and my deep sleep. And it tells me when I achieve a lower heart rate at night will depend on how much deep sleep I get and how long it takes for me to get there. It tells me all about that. And ultimately 9:30 to 10:30, it tells me, I'm like, really, 9:30 to 10:30? But I've been doing it, and it's been really helpful. Plus the brain tap has helped me get even deeper, which has been really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? I forget the word, but it is that word. And but uncanny. It's uncanny. So anyways, that's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys liked this content today. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, talking about the 5 boring basics that you need to do to get out of overwhelm. Is sympathetic versus parasympathetic. Understand and be aware. Neurotransmitter, the role that neurotransmitters take, and having good gut health, and balancing your blood sugars, and controlling your brain, and so forth. Gut health, good gut health. That goes without saying. Blood sugars, and then back over to brain health. So once again, my name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I look forward to ending your adrenal fatigue nightmare. Thank you so much.